What's going on, everybody? I'm Keith, host of Just Our Thoughts with the Fellas, where 4 to 5 of my brothers give their perspective on national as well as local news. We touch on some trending hot topics as well as culturally relevant news. We also get a chance to dive into some deep core conversations. Check us out live every other Monday at 7 p.m. You can find us on Just Our Thoughts on YouTube live, as well as Just Our Thoughts fan page on Facebook. Also, please don't forget to follow us on IG, JOT with the Fellas.
Good evening, and welcome to part 2 of our series where we talked about daddy relationships, daddy issues, and daddy concerns. Now, if you remember 2 weeks ago, we kind of brought it from a male's perspective, but tonight we're going to switch it up. We're going to take it from a female's perspective, and Keith will give the bio. We have a special guest. Like I said, Keith will give the bio of Dr. Angela Clack, who has a community-focused and holistic healing practice where she focuses on mind, body, and soul. But before we do that, as you know, we like to start off our show just with a quick icebreaker. And the icebreaker is going to be, the question is, how was your Father's Day yesterday, fellas?
All right. You want me to go?
Right, I like that. All right. Father's Day was cool, man. Father's Day was cool for me. I didn't do much, man. Just pretty much relaxed all day. Um, got some breakfast, and that was pretty much it. We thought they were having a Juneteenth celebration, and we thought it would be cool to head on over to the Juneteenth celebration. But I think I was relaxing too hard, man, taking advantage of it. What's going on, Rob Tufnell, Lena Lane, and Gerald Hardy? We appreciate you guys for joining us on this today's podcast, today's conversation. So hang on in if you can. Share. Like this podcast, and please share it if you can. But that was my Father's Day celebration, man. Not too much, nice and easy, great food, and that's about it, man.
Okay. What you got, Professor? What you got?
Yeah. So I was cleaning like the side of my bedroom, and I came across Father's Day cards from last year. And I had about 5 or 6 of them that had all these gift cards, and one was for Cheesecake Factory. So, I gave it to the family, and I was like, listen, y'all can, Father's Day dinner on me. Okay.
You wanted them out the house. That's what you said.
No. I just wanted them to be like, his contribution towards my Father's Day dinner. So, nobody has to worry about coming out the pockets or cooking or anything like that. So,
right.
Nice.
So nice. I got a nice steak and shrimp dinner with a slice of cheesecake and a cool beverage. And I was outside under the gazebo, and watching TV, relaxing with the family. And it was dope. It was dope, man. So I got a lot of cards. My nephew,
this
my
guy in his
boys.
gazebo.
Yeah. It was my own little luau.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you, man.
What's up.
But it was dope. It was dope. I'm glad for it, man. Yeah.
Now, how was yours, E?
Mine was pretty good, man. Quick shout out, man, to my homeboy, man, Mike Washington. What's up, Mike Wash? Mine was pretty good, man. My father-in-law came into town, so we went out, man, to have a quick brunch, and the family was excited to see him, and we ate, fellowship. And then I stopped past Mom Duke's house for a quick moment. Mom Duke said she had a card for me, and as old as I am, I still look forward to those. Hey, listen, I look forward to those cards because Mom always gonna give me a nice little.
Yes.
That was pretty much it, man, for me.
EB, the cards, a lot of cards had maybe $20 here, $5 here. And some other gift cards.
Yeah.
So I had this little jar on my nightstand, and I keep loose dollars and gift cards and just to for emergency use. So my little guy Aiden, he knows where that jar is. So the graduation money he gets and stuff that I'll get, it's like our piggy bank. So we just put it in the little jar on the side for emergency use. Now tell him it's for emergency use, not for Saturdays at Target, bro.
Wow.
Man, I hope all the fellas that are joining us just really enjoyed the Father's Day, was able to sit back, relax, and do what you wanted to do. I see Rob Tufnell, you were able to play some golf, and I know you are big on golf. And we wish all the fellas, all the men, all fathers out there a wonderful and amazing Father's Day, and continue to celebrate women, continue to celebrate those fathers. Just because Sunday, the actual day, is over, continue to take them out, go get them a haircut, go do whatever you can to celebrate your guy, celebrate your dad. So fellas, we want to welcome everybody for joining us on this evening. I had a small technical difficulty. I'm gonna eat that one a little earlier, and we getting started a little bit late, but we want to thank everybody for just joining us on this podcast where we talk about national, local news. We talk about trending topics and culturally relevant topics. And most importantly, we have some dope guests. And on tonight, we have an amazing guest with Dr. Angela Clack. She's going to be joining us shortly. A few weeks ago, we talked about daddy issues from a male's perspective, like EB said, and whether your father was absent, whether he was home and still absent, and how it affects us, as we grow, as we mature throughout our journey. But I want to first introduce the fellas. EB, what's up, E?
Oh, what's good, man? What's good, man? Here, man. Just looking forward to a nice, exciting show.
Yes.
Get that perspective from Dr. Clark.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna have a good one, man. That's it, bro.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, that's gonna be the last time, though, that you put an R where that C is supposed to be.
Hey, you know what, Dr. Clark? You know what? I did that. Listen, you know what? I did that backstage earlier.
Looking at you too,
Dr. Clark, and I said, "Oops, I'm sorry, Dr. Clark."
Yeah, that's the last time. I got Dr. Clack is the bomb. No, I'm waiting, man. Good. I'm so excited, man. Yes, I am so. She's the bomb, man. Professor Kevin Kev, what's good, brother?
Hey, salutations, my brothers. Good evening. Good to see you guys, man. Another Monday night to kind of get a different viewpoint on how the ladies are affected by the absence of daddy. So I want to, I got some questions for her tonight. I want to see if she could really, dig in from that surface. I want to get to the root of the issue.
Oh man, get to the root of it. Hey, Kevin, what's your spin class, right? Has with the weather being like this, has more people come out?
Yeah.
Or is it pretty much the same?
It tapers. It tapers off when the weather starts to break a little bit. So while we still got good, decent numbers, it's not like it is January, February, March.
Gotcha.
Everybody's got their resolutions, and then when spring comes, resolutions are out the window.
It drops off.
Gotcha.
But the few that come are really the few that are consistent in their health, their goals, not just for a season, but it's a way of life. So it's dope.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Hey man, appreciate it. Hey, without further ado, we just want to give Dr. Angela Clack her, give her a nice introduction. Dr. Angela Roman Clack is a licensed psychotherapist and owner of Clack Associates LLC, a private practice outpatient counseling agency in South Jersey and in PA. She's passionate about discussing mental health and wellness. Because of her training, expertise, and teaching abilities, Dr. Clack has made a massive impact in our community by reducing the stigma of people of color who seek mental health treatment. So without further ado, we want to bring Dr. Clack on. What's up, Dr. Clack?
Hi, and let me help you out, Eric. Just say Dr. Angela. Just take out the whole last name.
Dr. Angela, I apologize. When we were backstage before we came on, I said Clark, and I said, "Oh, Clack." And you did. But I'm gonna say Dr. Angela tonight.
There you go. That is fine with me. That's
All
fine.
right. All
It's,
right.
it's funny because Dr. Clack could check in with us on a podcast every now and then and just say hi. She's busy, doing Monday evenings. Just throw something out there. And for a long time, it's like, yo, man, we got to get Dr. Clack on this thing, man, just to get her expertise, her experience, her knowledge, man, just to share with us. And we want to. And I felt like she could have joined us on every show. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But I'm like,
mm,
all right, well,
mm.
let's see if we could get her on this one and
Okay.
see, see where we could go with this. So, Dr. Clack, though, like, I was going over your bio, like you mentioned in your bio, it says reducing the stigma of people of color.
Mhm.
Is that stigma still there when it comes to us, people of color not seeking counseling or mental health treatment? Is that still there, or has it gone away over these last few years?
It is absolutely still there because there are a
Yeah.
whole host of folks who still are living with messages from many, many generations back that we just don't share this, right? We don't
Hmm.
talk about our personal vulnerabilities. We don't air our dirty laundry, so to speak. So there's a whole another generation that still has not stepped into that space where it's okay to talk about what's going on with us. Is
Hmm.
it getting better? It is. It absolutely is getting better.
Okay. Okay. So now that was one of my questions. I'm sitting there reading, and I know, over the years, I felt like it's declined some,
Mhm.
but I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, why not ask Dr. Clack? So Dr. Clack, what you been up to lately? I know you had something going on in London. You got your midday. Or
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you got going on, Dr. Clack.
So, just what you said about that question about the stigma, about why it's changed, the pandemic really propelled that conversation for a lot of folks to no longer feel like it is a weakness or a bad thing to get therapy because we all were struggling. I can't
Hmm.
imagine anybody who would come on here and say that they weren't in some way touched by the pandemic. And as we continue to kind of go through that, hi, Rob. So, I think that helped. But at the same time, it helped. It also exposed the inequities and health disparities for people of color who couldn't get help. So in the pandemic, all of our practices, particularly because they want to see someone who looked like us, marginalized Black and brown folk, all of our practice started to bust at the seams
Mm.
and we just couldn't see everybody. And so that forced some of us to do a wait list. It forced other people to, like me for a while, not say no. I know it's a self-care thing. I'm working on that. But we, during the pandemic, we just kept taking people because we knew that there was so much hurting going on. So we were seeing as many people as we can. But that showed me what will push people and a whole generation of folks to start shifting when they realize, like, dang, we all are hurting. This ain't
Mhm.
this, this is not
Right.
just
Right.
the privileged who get to do this. We all needed some support. So that's kind of where my practice really took off a little bit more in the last 2 years. So while a lot of people who said they might have saw a decrease in their revenue or a decrease in their job, most of us as therapists unfortunately had the best 2 years in terms of providing
Mm.
treatment because
Hmm.
it was the demand. There was more demand than there were therapists. That was the problem.
Mm, mm.
Doc, you bring up an interesting point. Full transparency. A lot of us had to go remote, and for me personally, I'm more of a person who kind of like hands on,
Mhm.
and when I was remote, it got to a point where I felt like I was closed in, you
Mhm.
know, and I just felt like I needed some form of outlet. And when you said that, your business pretty much picked up, I could see where you're coming from on that because some people may have needed someone to to, or
Yep.
just discuss some of the things that they were experiencing during that whole COVID time.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is before the pandemic, probably less than 20% were doing virtual. All of us were really working brick and mortar. And like in a flash, within 2 weeks, we all had to switch.
Hmm.
And so for me, I was holding on to my brick and mortar thinking, okay, the governor said 2 weeks, then he said a month. And then like 4 months later, it was like you have it made no sense for me to keep paying mortgage on something that I couldn't even use. And so when I switched, it helped because now I could see anybody anywhere in the state. Before, if you couldn't get to Southern Jersey, it didn't make sense for you to drive from North Jersey down to see me for 2 hours for an hour appointment and to drive 2 hours back. So now I can see anybody in PA or New Jersey because of telehealth.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Angela, thank you again for being with us tonight. I got some daddy questions for you, but my little brother Jerry, he's got a question up there, and I want to ask it real quick. It's a two-parter for me, and then I want to really dig into our topic. But have you seen an influx of men who are now coming to treatment and to therapy? Number one. And number two, what do you think has been maybe a couple of the reasons why men have been hesitant to open up and come to therapy and give it an opportunity to try and help them?
Wow, that could be a show all by itself, right?
I know. Just give me the condensed. Give me the condensed.
Okay, so the condensed is, I wouldn't use the word influx. I would say that there are more men who are considering and have opened up, whether it's because of the insistence of a partner or because of work stress. A lot of times we are getting more men in, it comes in because of work, something happened on the job. So that is I think that feels better than to say depression or anxious or something like that, to label it as a work stressor. But once I get in there and unpack it, there's some emotional layers that came as a result of that. So not an influx, but more men are coming. And probably as you might imagine, why don't men come? It is the perception that it is a weakness, that it's not something, particularly Black men, but not something that men do, to come talk to someone about their problems. Because why? Men, you guys are natural problem solvers. You know, for many years and early in my marriage, I just couldn't figure this out until I realized, like, if I tell my husband something before I get the sentence out, he's already got a plan about how we're going to take care of this. And eventually we got to the place where I would say, okay, babe, I got to tell you something. I only want you to listen. I don't want you to solve it. I just want you to listen. So now when we have a conversation, so now he'll say, so when we have a conversation, he goes, okay, is this a listen only, or do you want me to do something? And sometimes I'll say a little bit of both. But I think that's it. I think that it's just that men are natural problem solvers and particularly aren't really used to coming to other people to figure it out for them.
All right.
Wow. Good stuff.
So what we gonna do? We're gonna jump in.
We're gonna jump in. Go ahead.
Second part of your question, yeah.
Because Counselor Keith, he kind of leaned back in his seat a little bit.
I'm thinking about what Dr. Clack is saying, and I want to stay on task because that's a whole nother topic in itself.
That is a whole nother show.
Just that communication piece, and how we are so different. But Dr. Clack,
the problem solving thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right, the problem solving thing. So Dr. Clack, like we mentioned a few weeks ago, we discussed and we talked about daddy issues. At times we're vulnerable and transparent about how our daddy issues affected us, whether our dad was in the house, or absentee father, and how our rearing and our relationships develop and how some of those issues surface. So, from a male perspective, and, there was a lot of feedback from females, and we thought it would be nice to really just get a female's perspective and, someone that's seasoned, someone that is expert in this area, and how it does affect women in their child rearing, a dad, a father being there in a home, or not being there in a home, and how does it show up in relationships? Some of those issues. How does it show up at work? So we just kind of really wanted to just pick your brain, and see, and actually help us, in our relationships, and how that works. So that was the crux of why and the who and how and everything. So if you could give us some, just some thoughts on that off the, I guess off the cuff, and what you think about women and their daddy issues and some of the things that you've seen, in counseling, whether it comes to relationships or not.
The first thing that comes to mind is how much this is gender driven. So women who are raising boys, it seems to be a little bit different than those raising girls. And it seems to be dependent upon her relationship with the child's father. So, for example, some of the women I work with who are raising boys, if they didn't have such good relationship with his father, that boy's going to get some of that somewhere along the way if she doesn't work on getting healed, because she is now projecting through her son all of the hurt from his father. So I do a lot of work with women around, he's not that man. And her response will be, but he acts like that man. And so sometimes I have to really help her to see her son very differently, even if some of his mannerisms, his personality, his disposition, his behavior, whatever that may be be very well reflective, even if he spent a little bit of time with his dad. It may be, but it really is on her to take care of her emotional needs, so she is not now projecting and also creating some kind of emotional disruption in that young man's life. That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. And then for my girls, these girls, no matter how hard the disappearance of dad, if he shows up half the time, or broken promises, these girls long for that relationship with that man. Whether he was in her life for 1 year or 5 years before, there is always this longing for the father. So there's a father hunger. There's a lot of research out there on mother hunger, but there's a lot on a father hunger, which does what? Now you look at who are the men our young girls are choosing. So is it someone like dad, or is it quite the opposite? Because now I'm rebellious because he wasn't around. So there's so many layers to this, and so many family dynamics. It really is dependent on so many factors. But the bottom line is there is a huge emotional impact when that father is absent.
Wow. And Doc, I was going to touch on that, but I got stuck on that point that you mentioned, and that kind of, resonated with me when you said that sometimes that young man, if he has those same characteristics or mannerisms of his father, then he's going to get the blunt, and his mother's going to treat him some type of way because of those ill will feelings that she has towards his father. That's deep right there. But here's my question, Doc, on the father-daughter thing. Growing up, I admired that father-daughter relationship. I don't have any girls, but just kind of like walking down the street, I always was like, wow, that's powerful to see that father holding his daughter's hand, walking down the street, and then to see how that relationship flourished into something nice. I guess the question I'm asking, does it become traumatic for that young lady, because they always look at their father as like a superhero. They look at him as whatever he says, his recommendations, his suggestions, they look at that as law. Is it traumatic, when the father becomes absent later on, or if some of the things he said were not true, when they go to get into a relationship as they get older?
You complicated with that second half of that question, Eric.
Go with the first part.
So let me go with the first part.
That was a doozy.
Right? See, I'm not alone. It is traumatic. So fathers give us our identity. So when we're born and we know our father, we get our father's last name. So we're already connected, not only genetically through our DNA, we have our father's last name. So he gives us, and then he affirms us as we grow up. You're beautiful, you're smart. If I'm around, I'm taking you and I'm going to show you how you should be treated. So quick story. So I have a bonus family. So when I met my husband, he had 3 girls. And the oldest one, when she turned 15, she wanted to date. And my husband is a very traditional man. And but he said, here's the deal. I want to meet this young man, but here's what I want you to do. You tell him to write me a letter about why you are important enough for him to take you out right now, at 15 or whatever. And she was like, Daddy, that's so embarrassing. I'm not going to ask him to write that letter. He said, well, then if he doesn't write the letter, he's telling you how much he cares about you. So he was testing him. So it took weeks and weeks went by. And then finally she said, okay, Daddy, he did it. So then my husband said, well, okay. Well, now he's got to read it to me. So she said, oh, he's not doing that, Daddy. You're embarrassing. He said, okay. Y'all like going to the movies? Time, meet us up at the movies. I want him to read the letter to me. A couple of weeks go by. The young man, he does it. My husband said, well, this shows how much I want you to understand how you set a standard for how a man should treat you. And if they care enough about you, they will do something, particularly for your father, relationship. I need him to know you have a father.
All right.
And then the kid did it. He was embarrassed, but he did it. And my husband said, I only wanted you to see that I have the best for you. And I needed to see if he also had the best for you.
Right.
So there's something about a father playing a role in that daughter's life, because it's about protection, number one. Of course, affection is the other thing. Protection, affection. And of course, we raise our kids with discipline. Right. But it is a father who affirms for her who she is. And even now, when they were adults and they were dating, men will treat a girl a certain way, whether or not they know that father's in the picture or not. And so one of the things my husband would say, when my daughters got in relationships that weren't the best, and he would say, because I haven't met them, they don't know that you have someone in your life who will take care of this.
Right.
And he didn't necessarily mean, joking somebody up, but of course, if he had to, he had to. But he says, when girls know there's a father present, men will treat them differently. And so when they don't have them, carte blanche for the guy. Who's she going to turn to? He can isolate her. He can mentally abuse her. He can physically abuse her, because he doesn't fear anyone. So I just think that it's so important to think about the role that fathers play, and their absence can be very traumatic. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that your second part, I can't remember your second part.
That's all right. You answered it. Okay. Kev, he's on mute, but he's ready to ask a question.
Yeah, that second part, man. So Dr. Angela, I think you pretty much touched on my question, but one of the things that I had brought up on our last podcast when we were talking about the impact of an absent father on boys, that message for me, not having my father, present in the home on that 24-hour, 7-day, 365 days a year, on that level. One of the messages that it sent to me was that relationships don't have longevity. And I saw how that kind of played out early on in my dating years, in my short-lived relationships with various women before I got married. So I saw how that played out. It wasn't a message that was spoken to me, but intrinsically, that's what I observed from, the lack of my father there, or a relationship between mom and dad. It was that relationships don't have no length, and it's okay to move on from one relationship to another and not have to really emotionally connect. It's okay to disconnect and develop another relationship for a small period of time. So what message, and that can be very damaging to a young boy, to a young man who is really, trying to have a stable relationship or navigate relationships. But what message, maybe something similar to what I experienced, what message do you think that gives to young women when the father is not there in the home?
So when I think, so I'll answer it clinically and then break it down really,
Yes.
because really what we're talking about as therapists when we're on the other side is attachment. And so when there are broken attachments with our primary caregivers, mom and dad, very, very early on, if that attachment isn't repaired, so to speak, that kind of distrust,
Yes.
fear of commitment,
Mhm.
and fear of attaching will then translate and transfer into my relationships, not just intimate and romantic relationships with a partner, but with people. Because now I see that relationships don't last. Or if there's someone like a father who has maybe serial relationships and this is done in front of the kids, you're modeling for them and that there's no attachment here because he easily can switch them up very quickly in a week, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing for women if they're doing that with men, but we're talking about men tonight. But that is attachment. And when there's a disrupted attachment, that then disrupts her developmental expectations in relationships. And so it can get pretty deep. And so where I would go with this, there's a lot of healing work once people recognize what it is. Sometimes people don't know, like many people don't understand attachment literature. That's something that you would have to go to therapy and have someone help you understand, like because your father wasn't there, a couple of things happen. Girls can become promiscuous or they can go the other direction. They can internalize a lot of distress and become very depressed or anxious. So there's a lot of different pathways. There's no one can predict what a girl will choose, but if he's not there, remember, he affirms our identity. He provides protection. And if I don't have that, I'm really lost. So my identity struggles. I really don't know who I am. There are women in their 40s and 50s that I work with who are just now finding out that the man who raised them was not their biological father. That happens more than you want to believe. And that is devastating. That is devastating. It is as devastating finding out that the man who raised you is not your father, but I don't know who is. So that's what is coming up for a lot of women who are in their 40s and 50s and maybe 60s. So they're just, now remember, these are family secrets that didn't come out
Didn't leak out.
because, I've had them unfortunately and sadly be an uncle. They find out it was the uncle, not your dad. Your uncle was your dad, things like that. And that is just, it's so heartbreaking. And not only that, when you try to go and maybe start a relationship or try to connect on a different level, there's so many layers to get through because that person is like, I didn't know nothing about this. I don't want this. Like, and what are we looking at? Here we go with rejection all over again. Not only was I rejected at birth because you weren't there, now I'm trying to connect and you don't want to have anything to do with me. So this is deep on so many levels. So I can see why this conversation came up for y'all in y'all last conversation, in your last room.
So Dr. Clack, what are some of the things, or I guess, what does it look like when daddy issues begin to surface? When women in relationships, what are some things that that you notice or that you see, and it's a reoccurring theme with them? What are some of those things that I guess for us men that we would look for, or that we would notice?
So I wouldn't say this is 100%. So I don't want anyone watching to say, "Oh, that's me," but I got dads. I don't want anybody
put that disclaimer out there.
I'm good. You, I like the way you framed that question. You said, "What do you see?" So I will talk about. I've been doing mental health for 25 years, so I'm going to bring it in and say what I see. Of course, it comes up in intimate relationships, and it comes up in dating. So it could come up in this constant questioning you when there is a perceived breach of trust, even if there isn't one. So, it could be, I suspect you might be doing something because my dad did that, or you didn't call me back. So I'm going to keep
Mm-hmm.
calling you because when you don't call back, my dad left us and went to the store and never came back.
Mm,
So
Mm-hmm.
all of these histories of abandonment will now be
mhm,
projected onto that man. So he carries a lot of weight. He
mm,
doesn't even know. He has no idea often where it's coming from because sometimes she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. So until
yeah.
she speaks the story, like, well, that's what my dad said, or that's what my dad did, and it's but sometimes she's aware, sometimes she's not. So it shows up
Right.
in that way. It also shows up in women's self-esteem. So remember I
Mhm,
said
Right.
men give
Right.
women identity. So a lot of
Right.
times
Right.
women will
Right.
struggle with not feeling pretty enough because they
mm,
didn't have a father to affirm their beauty, their intellect. They might
Yeah.
not feel smart enough. So those kind of things that comes up in their self concept, how they see themselves, and then also how they think men see them. So you'll
Right.
see some women,
Mm.
their personality is their sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
wow.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm presenting myself always very flirtatious. And why? Because I've learned that this is the only way I can get attention.
Mm,
Right.
Why? Because I don't know how to get positive attention. I never had a man tell me, you don't have to dress like that to find someone who likes you, or you don't have to talk like, you don't have to. I never had that. Who I met is who I met
mhm,
along the path, and those were the dudes who said, "Yeah, oh, that's nice," blah
Right.
blah 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 blah.
Right.
Right.
uh-huh,
So a lot of times we're looking for men to affirm us, but
mhm,
if that man is looking to manipulate the
mm,
relationship, the wrong things are going to get affirmed.
gotcha. Hey, Doc, do you find in your practice, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, um, that when fathers are not in their daughters' lives, sometimes they get a bad break and they
Mhm.
suffer, because of what the mom has told the young lady about her father. Do you see that a lot of your practice, and if men are like given a second chance,
Yeah.
you know, from their daughter, even though they were not in in their relationship, earlier on.
I do see that. Again, I won't say a lot,
Uh-huh.
but it does happen where the father does try to make a connection with the daughter as she's older, because then no one can tell her she can't talk to him, right?
Right.
Right.
6 and 7 year olds can't just go have a relationship with the dad
Uh-huh.
because mom is the transporter. Mom can make the wall. But as you get older, you find out things. You can find your dad. Sometimes they look for their dad.
Uh-huh.
And the dad will say, I tried to look for you, or I tried, your mom blocked it, or
Mm,
but that is a hard wall for him to get through because for 10, 15 years, she only knew one story.
right.
So he really has to be persistent. He has to be now here's the thing, the key to that. He has to be persistent. He has to be open and honest, but he has to be consistent. You can't come back and start a relationship and disappear again, and then come back and then
Right.
disappear again because she gives you pushback. Of
Mm,
course she is. You're
uh-huh.
going to get all those years of what she's been told about who you are. So you really have to work hard to stay in that relationship and hang in there with her as she learns to rebuild her trust. And
Uh-huh.
I'm talking years. This is
Mm.
not, I've seen fathers who think they can just show up and have a
Mhm.
relationship in a year or 2 years. And
Uh-huh.
I'm
Right.
like, no, we're looking at a stretch here, buddy. You've
Mm.
been gone 10, and it might take you 10 to get that back. It
My
Right.
doesn't.
God.
I'm like, the math doesn't add up like that.
My
Right.
God. My God.
You just have to hang in there. It's a lot of work. She is going to
Mm.
continue to test you
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
week after week. You said you were coming. You said you were going to call. You didn't call. Oh, I thought we were
Mhm.
going to meet up. I thought you were coming to dinner for Christmas. You make one promise that you miss. You've lied again, and you're starting all back
Mm-hmm.
over again.
Mm.
Dr.
Mm.
Clack, I was actually going to mention that too, and how difficult that could be on both parties.
Yeah.
That relationship, building that relationship, because there's no foundation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There's no foundation there, and dad is coming in at a when she's an adult, and you have nothing to fall back on.
Mhm.
In terms of a foundation or even history, I was going right to that in terms of how difficult it could be, really, for both parties. Dad really trying to show some type of consistency and build a bond with his daughter, and her just really just having some trust,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and saying, hey, are you going to be able to erase these 30 years of not showing up and not being there, and what I was told, from those that I love about why you're not here. Now I thought that was interesting.
And I will caution men, like, it is also not the best idea, although it may appear to be, not to show up as Disneyland dad. Meaning, don't come with gifts if you're not going to come with the quality for the relationship.
Sure.
Because really, that's what they want. They want you, not the things. But men feel good about giving gifts and giving good gifts, and they feel like monetarily they can make up for time. Again, the math doesn't work that way.
Right. Now that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Go ahead, Katie.
Part of our society, I guess we're conditioned with child support and the legal system to feel like monetary is supporting the child, and not really understanding the totality of emotional and then your presence being there as part of the condition as well. One of the things you talked about earlier, Dr. Angela, was that some of the negative traits that women can see early on in their father and pretty much project that in relationships. What do you think, though, just on the flip side, what do you think the message is to from the wife to the husband, or from the girlfriend to the boyfriend, when there's a comparison in place? My father doesn't do it like that, or my father would normally do things this way, or what type of what message do you think that subtly sends to the husband or the boyfriend unknowingly? And it might not be the woman trying to be just trying to hurt him or injure him, but it's just something that they say as part of just a comparison there, but it seems to have a deeper meaning when there's that comparison between her father and her current. I mean, is it that that she sees a flaw in him that she's trying to get him to recognize in the comparison? What message do you think that gives to the man?
Good question.
That he didn't read the fine print. And what I mean by that is that there's sometimes unspoken expectations. So there are things that sometimes we operate in a relationship that we experience with our dads or hurt our dads, and we expect that from you, but we didn't quite articulate it in that way. So those things like, oh, my dad never did it like that, really says, so you're not as good as him. You're not good enough. That's what I think men hear, is that, I'm not as good. I'm not good enough for you, or I'm not as good as your dad. So I think it's what they hear versus what she's saying. But it is about expectations, and comparison is never good. There's no way I can ever think of comparison working in any dynamic in our life. Comparing ourselves to a model on Instagram, or how people look before filters. Comparison is just never good. And
you're the thief of joy.
It is. It creates a lot of conflict in relationships, because of course he's not supposed to replace your dad. He's not supposed to be your dad. He is who he is. But if dad was really good to us, and if dad spoiled us, then you can best believe she's looking for that in that man.
You done messed that woman up. You done messed her up.
Hey, Doc, that was good stuff. Kevin pretty much he pretty much asked my question, and that was
you got a second part to this one.
Hey, Dr. Angela, that was going to be my question. Do women look for us to be their fathers? And you pretty much answered that. So,
but sometimes it's not on a conscious level. It's not like we're somehow there is the whether we call it energy, whether we call it something about what we got from our father that we see in you. that we come together and somehow we're like, oh my gosh, you're like my dad in this way. And that man may have never even met your dad.
Right.
My husband is a lot like my dad, but my dad has been deceased for 20 years. So my husband never even got to meet my dad. But my husband is a great provider like my father. So I never said that to my husband, but somehow he does some of the same things, says some of the same things, but it's not always spoken. So other times women are looking for, and so when they write their list of these are the characteristic, I want someone like my dad, they are intentionally looking for that checklist, that list to be checked off from men. So it can be either way.
And sometimes it could be honest, because we talked a few weeks ago of how sometimes we look for our wives and our significant others to be like our mom, as far as
Right.
you know,
Right.
whether it was the meals or the laundry.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's like it's not trying to really compare. It's just something that just comes out where it's like we were so used to it over the years, and when we move on and leave the nest, we kind of look for to be like, okay, yeah, I want it to be like it was when I was growing up. So
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Dr. Clack, about like sometimes when you don't that unspoken expectation. So he's very similar to my dad. I like how he's this way, and he shows up in this way. But then when he doesn't meet one expectation, that
mm,
comparison,
mm,
begins to seep in, and
Mm.
it's, all right, so he's not like, what I mean, and it can
Yes.
alter or change, a perspective, and what that relationship looks like. Yeah. So sometimes that expectation, like you said, it definitely needs to be talked about. Um, yeah. So now I appreciate you. Thank you. For everybody that's watching. You could also we go on our Amazon Music, you go on our YouTube, check out all our content. We have Dr. Angela Clack. You could check her out at www.clackassociates.com. We have the phone number scrolling. So, Dr. Clack, are you taking clients right now?
Yes and no. So so like I said, I am still recovering honestly from the pandemic.
Okay.
I had a almost a 9-month waiting list, but
mm.
I have 3 other staff with me,
Okay.
so I'm also filling their schedule up. And so if anybody's a licensed clinical therapist and you want to interview with me to be a part of our practice in New
Sure.
Jersey, feel free to reach out as well. But we're getting very close to taking new clients. Yes.
Cool. Cool.
All
Cool.
right.
Good.
So, Dr. Angela,
Yes, sir.
I got some questions about fathering your,
Mm.
your spouse or fathering the woman you're in a relationship with. But I want to pause on that for a second. Do you think in dating situations, do you think that there are some father issues or um, some some longing for the father to be in a woman's life when younger women tend to solely date older men? Do you think that there is some relationship between the father daughter relationship when they specifically only want to date, no one their age bracket, but maybe someone 10 to almost 15 years their senior? Do you see some relational issue there between the father and daughter, the childhood issue?
I do.
Or could
I
that just be preference
I
mostly?
think it's more of something telling from the childhood dynamics versus preference. I think it's not an absolute. Nothing is ever 100%. It's not
Mm.
the direct correlation, but I will say my experience has been that when younger women date men 10 to 15, 20 years their senior, absolutely there has been some trauma, some abandonment, there has been some disruption in her birth father or the significant man in her life who raised her. Absolutely, there is something there. Yeah.
So could the message be is that she is looking for a father figure rather
Yes.
than an individual to have an intimate, loving sexual relationship with. Is that
Yes.
the message more so?
I think it is. I think it is. I am longing for someone to take care of me like a father. I am not necessarily interested in the intimacy, the physical intimacy, but there's an emotional piece there. There's a security there because typically men 10 to 15, 20 years older, typically, I don't want to say a lot, are not often in the streets looking for a bunch of other women.
Okay. Right,
So
right.
if she believes that she is enough for him, then she doesn't have to compete with other young women her age like she has to do with boys her age. So I do think there's always multiple layers to this, but I'll say that the women that I have seen who date men that much older, there is definitely more around missing the person who would have been in their life if they had a father.
So that older man does represent a form of security and stability and some, they got a pension.
Yeah. It's funny because women will joke about that, like, oh, I'm just here to get the Social Security. I mean, they're joking, but they're not joking, right?
Right. Yeah.
That was good. That was good.
But yeah, I think I definitely think it's something there. Whether she wants to acknowledge that to people, I don't know, but I can say that the women I've talked to have been pretty open about that experience.
So there was some trauma that triggers that that attraction to older men. Trauma specifically.
Well, when I say trauma, I also mean the absence. I think the absence of the father is traumatic.
Yes. Okay.
I don't have a question. My daughter and she calls me her twin, and we have just such an amazing relationship. And I probe, I talk, just to see what she is. She dumps on me after even today when she got off work, and I often think about what that'll look like down the road in terms of her choice for a partner. What would that look like? Because we just have this crazy love for one another. And she feels as if, Dr. Clack, she feels as if I'm a pounce on a guy when she starts dating, and I'm not. She just has this feeling. But that reaffirming, I think it's interesting how I reaffirm her so much, and I tell her how much I love her, and kissing her and telling her how beautiful she is, and then sometimes she doesn't feel that way. And I find that to be interesting, despite how much I say it to her, and that is my job, and I wholeheartedly feel that way about her. I can tell, by some of her texts, sometimes she still doesn't feel that way when she's out, and I wonder, where does that come from?
The whole other 300 million people in the world. It is social media.
Right.
It is all the images that portray that beauty looks like this. It is all of the other kids who sometimes they're in competition with academically. It's every other influential part of her life that you are up against. But I always say just continue to be that, because she will know that I could always fall back, that there is a constant. My dad is my constant. And then she will, as a young woman, will learn to love herself unconditionally, because that's what you're teaching her.
Right.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
Right. Can I shift to a celebrity, Dr. Angela? I want to get your thoughts about.
Okay. Let me see who this is.
Come on. Take a guess. Take a guess.
No, it's so many.
Celebrity.
A male?
I think I know where you're going.
Black male celebrity.
Not Will Smith.
No. We're talking about men. We're talking about men and children. I'm gonna give you another guess. Men and children. Men and who has several children. Working on an additional child right now.
You're talking about Nick Cannon.
Oh, Nick Cannon. Okay.
Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon got about maybe 11, 12 children.
Wow.
Maybe by about 6 or 7 different women. He's a multi-millionaire. You know, he's a dope individual when it comes to television and his business, and he's a mogul. But on the flip side, you know, we kind of see a little bit of the glorification of how he's able to have all of these different mothers and all of these different children. Do you think he or any man can effectively be a father
Mhm.
to children that are raised in several different households? Now, I know he has more access than I do. He can jump on a private jet, get his children to him, and things of that nature. But even with the access to resources that he has, what message do you think that that sends to his children? And do you think that he can be an effective parent even with his celebrity status? What's your thoughts on that? I know I threw a lot at you. I hope I
It
didn't
is a
give you an
lot.
arid. I didn't give you
It,
an arid question. I hope I didn't.
it was a close. It was a close second.
But I'm sure you dealt. I'm sure you dealt with men who, you know, male clients who have several children with
Mhm.
several different baby mothers, and the difficulty that it can be to, you know, have the children together, to see the children often, and the challenges that you know that provides, that faces, you know. So I just wanted to get your, I didn't know how familiar you were with his circumstance, but you
A
know, just
little
the
bit.
effectiveness, the
Yeah.
effectiveness of fathering, especially with the girls, because he
Yeah.
has a ton of girls in the mix of those 9, 10, 11 ones. What type of maybe dangerous messages can that give in
Mm.
spite of his celebrity status?
Well, almost, you know, any man who, this could be any man who works a lot,
Mm, yeah.
and travels a lot. It's the same thing. You know, I think a couple of things I would think about: the relationship with their mother, and does the mom promote this? So is the mom, you know, building a connection, even if he's not there, to make sure that he says goodnight to them every night, or he calls them every week? So I think there's
Right.
something there. First of all, can he be a good father? I do think he can be. Is it the kind of father that would be someone who comes home every night and has dinner at the table and does something 20, you know, is there, you know, more 24 hours, at least see their kid at least once a day? I'm sure it
Mm,
will be different, but well, he has the means to take care of his kids, number one. So the average man cannot be out here doing that because he cannot physically, financially take care of that many kids.
that's right.
But I think he can be a decent father. And I'm not talking about who he is as a person, but his
Mm,
circumstances. I think that he can, if he's intentional about how he's doing this, and that is, how does he connect and attach to each one of them? Do they all get their own time with him? Does he make
mm,
sure that he has his relationship with this one, this one, this
Right.
one,
Right.
and
Right.
that all y'all ain't coming out here at the same time, and y'all with the nanny while I'm on the road? Like, that
mm,
is not the way to do
right.
this. So I don't want to say that it's impossible. I think he can be a good father. I think that it won't be the same as the dads who come home every night and can kiss their kids goodnight. It just
Mhm.
won't be the same. Now, again, for people listening, I'm not talking about his other antics and his other behavior, because I know Nick Cannon has a whole nother side to himself. The question is about a father who has that many
There
children
you go.
by that
Right.
many different
Right.
moms.
Yeah.
Can he be a good father, or are we
Right.
judging him by the number of children, by the number of women, and by
Right.
who he is? Right. That's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're
Right.
we're paying attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you know, I do think it's equated to men that, you know, thinking about even truck drivers, you know, traveling across the country and they're not home every night. You know, they may have, you
Right.
know, children across the country, and you know, just their presence. I think their presence means a lot, you know, and that's not the presents, not that type of presence, but just
Mhm.
simply being there. You know, I think that means a lot. And them traveling, it takes away. I kind of equate it to that. I think his
Mhm.
provision financially will
Mhm.
be, you know, he'll be able to do that, but just that, you know, that kiss late at night, you know, that prayer before bed, or you know, what have you, and that touch. I think that touch is important too.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to disqualify, you know, that part, but you know, I think it's interesting because a lot more people for sure, have the same issue or obstacle that Nick Cannon has, and he's a multimillionaire,
Exactly.
So now that's a good question, though, Kevin. It's a dope question.
Yeah.
Good stuff. You got something else, brother?
Well, I brought the other reason why I brought it up too was because it not only does it to me. I have an issue with the message, the overall message that it does send, but even in the several different homes, it seems like it can have the potential to even create resentment between the siblings as well. Right? Because, you know, some will grow up saying that you favored or you spent more time and you did because of work you weren't at a specific meaningful moment to me because of the obvious. There's many of them, there's only one of him that he can't, those really meaningful moments will get overlooked, so it just seems like growing up as a family unit with the siblings, it may be detrimental to them because they might not grow up cohesive, but there might be some bitterness towards one another, thinking that dad favored them over me. So that was just another part of that.
And that happens every day without celebrity status, that even with dad at home, dad can a blended family could come together and he can favor his over hers. Like that happens anyway. Yeah. Right. So I hope that men aren't I hope they're not looking at Nick Cannon as a poster child for that, because unless you have $1 million status, you should not be trying to emulate that lifestyle.
Right.
I ain't got $1,000 right now, Dr. Angela.
Yes, he does.
I'm good.
Thank you, Dr. Angela. That was
You're
good.
welcome. You're welcome. But that was I think it's a great question, because I think that so many people look to celebrity lifestyles. They really do. And often people don't think about the children. They don't think about the children of celebrities until those kids get in trouble. Then when you're like, I know why that, he's on drugs, she's on drugs. We don't think about that until they become younger people, a little bit older than kids.
Older, right. Because then you start to see what the outcome is.
That's right.
Yeah. So, all right, I'll be quiet.
No, you good. I was going to see if Dr. Clack, I know she has to go, but you guys had anything else before we wrap up with Dr. Clack?
No, thank you, Dr. Angela. We got more, but we ain't gonna hold you.
Hey, Dr. Clack, listen.
Yes, sir.
Can we invite you back?
Of course. I want to say first of all, happy Father's Day to you guys. Second of all,
thank you.
I appreciate any platform that allows for the conversation authentically open about mental health. And as men of color, you have created a dialogue that's not happening everywhere. So not only for women, but for men. So even if they're not, actively engaged in talking on here, this might get shared out and they may be watching it. So remember, you never know who's watching. You never know who's watching you and what you're setting out there as an example for leadership and what you do as men. So I would be honored to come back, because I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. I love the questions. When those questions come up, it helps me take pause, because when I'm gonna get off here, it's like now I can go talk to Dr. Kia, get ready, because we get ready to talk. I'm like, Kia,
she's on here.
Right? I know. So I was like, what do you think about that question? So it gives me time to have intellectual discourse with somebody else.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Clack, can you let those that's watching and us talk to us? Where can they find you? Talk to us about your midday sessions that you have. Can you share some of the things that you got coming up, if you don't mind?
Sure. No. So when I am on social media, I am on @Clack Angela, and then I have an IG page. And so for most part, I do Black and brown women, but sometimes I will do general mental health. But often my passion and my practice is Black and brown women who've experienced some kind of trauma in their life. That is my passion, to heal Black women. So I am on here with every now interviews. I have an interview with Reverend Nikki coming up at the end of the month on her book. So that will be good. That's why I said I'm learning StreamYard, so I can do that and have her come and be everywhere on social media when I interview her. Yes. So her book is out. I know, I saw that. So her book is out now. We get to talk about her book. And so London is next year. London is 2023. Where
Okay.
I'll be speaking on honoring the embodied experience of people of color and trauma. So that came as a result of someone who I spoke for in Hawaii last year. So those relationships, and that's the other thing I'll say about this, you guys, is to stay engaged. When people comment on here and y'all start nurturing and building your audience, again, you never know who's watching to see something in you that later on they're going to tap into your genius. So that I will say, and I'll leave it that. You have my website on here. Everybody knows how to reach me. You're more than welcome to tap into and pick my brain anytime.
Yes.
Dr. Clack, we appreciate you. We thank you. If you can follow Dr. Clack, anyone that's looking, for some service, to please www.clackassociates.com. Her phone number 856-875-5335. Dr. Clack, we love you. We appreciate you.
There is a wait list.
Thanks for just joining us.
Wait list.
9 months.
There is a wait list.
Listen, thanks guys for putting that out there again.
There's a wait list.
I'm working on it, y'all. But listen, it's better to get on that wait list because you wait too long, the list just gonna get longer. That's
So do it now.
Yes.
Right. Thank you guys.
We appreciate you.
You're
Love
welcome. Have a great evening.
Yes.
Love you guys back.
You
Bye.
too.
So much.
Fellas, we want to thank everybody for joining us, man. Dr. Clack, man, she's fun. I remember sitting in clinical supervision with Dr. Clack a long time ago, man, and I'm sitting there looking over, and she was just dropping some gems then. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I ain't there yet. But she was killing it, man, and giving some, some direction and everything. So certainly appreciate Dr. Clack taking her time. Her girlfriend, one of her besties, Dr. Kia, who blessed us with her. Yeah, she did grief and loss with us, man. That's one of her great friends. So we definitely appreciate the sisters coming through. Fellas, anything, man? Y'all got anything before we close out?
Oh man.
I want to leave it right there with Dr. Angela, man. She spoke to a lot of the women's issues as it relates to the uninvolved dad. I just want to leave it there, man, and let that thing marinate. Just we're asking everybody to share this, man. Everybody that's on, just share it, please, because it can help.
If you could share this, share this content, share this podcast. It'll be on YouTube. You can share it on our Facebook fan page. Share it with everybody. We're talking about daddy issues with Dr. Angela Clack. This is me. I'm Keith Hall. My brother, Professor Kevin Kev, and E Dub. Yo, this is just our thoughts and the fellas. We want you guys to have a blessed week. Have an awesome week. Love on your family members and continue to love on them. Peace.
Peace. Yeah.